Hello, Helen here. Thanks for joining me today. Today's card I'm going to be making some watercolour flowers with this New Garden Treasures set. I'm going to be painting them with some New Crisp inks and using them as a watercolour. I'm not going to be using the Misty today, I'm just going to be using acrylic blocks, and I'm only using the outline main flower and one of the leaves outlines. Now I'm going to just stamp multiple ones of the flowers and then quite a few of the leaves, and I'm going to be stamping them in Versamark sticky ink and then embossing them with gold embossing powder. You could do this card with any flower stamps, as long as you've got an outline that you can then watercolour. I'm sure any flowers would look just lovely in this card. I am stamping on watercolour paper. I'm using this Bristol Strathmore smooth watercolour paper. You need a paper that's going to be able to take quite a bit of water, because I'm going to be doing quite a loose watercolour style, and you need the water to be able to move the paint or dye around. So make sure that you're going to stamping on watercolour paper for this one. It doesn't look like I stamped the second one in very well, as the embossing powder's not sticking to it, so I'm going to stamp a few more. I'm not sure how many I'm going to need. So to paint the flowers, I'm going to use two of the New Crisp ink cubes that I've got. One's grapevine and one's cotton candy. I'm going to start off with cotton candy as the background colour. To the side I've got some acrylic block, which I'm going to just smoosh the ink pad down onto, and I'll just reapply it as I need it. I've got a fine number 2 paintbrush, and I've got a little bowl of water here, and I'm just going to start off by wetting the petal and then picking up some of the dye off the acrylic block and just painting it onto the petal towards the bottom, and then I'm going to use water to spread it around so it lightens up as it goes to the end of the petal, and I'm going to do that for all of the petals, and then I'll go back and do the same with the grapevine, but I'll just use a little bit at the base of the flowers. But first, by putting the water on, it makes the ink spread quite fluidly onto the petal, and just gives a lovely watercolour effect. To do this very loose style of watercolouring, you actually need quite a bit more water than you think you do. I was quite surprised at how much you needed to put on to get the ink to do the moving you wanted to, and then you just really let the water do its thing and leave it to dry. It's quite an amazing way of watercolouring, and just gives such a lovely effect at the end. You'll see here I didn't have quite enough water on the petal, so the ink just didn't move very far, so I had to go back in and add a little bit more water. So you're better off wetting the petal quite a bit before you drop in the ink. And that's it, that's the flower done. Now for the leaves, I'm going to use a grey this time. I know that's an unusual choice. I just didn't want a really strong green to take away from the colour of the flowers. So I'm going to use Silverstone and Industrial Diamond, the two middle colours out of the grey set that I've got here. Now remember, I've always got a list of the materials I've used on my blog, so down in the description box underneath the video is the link to the blog post for this card, and at the bottom of that will be a list of all the materials I've used. I always do that with my videos. So what I'm going to do for the leaves is just do a wash of the lighter of the two greys all over the leaf, and then drop in with water some of the darker grey just for the stem and at the base of each of the leaves. Very simple colouring. The filming here doesn't show the grey, it looks almost green, but it is actually a stone sort of grey colour in real life. So I've gone ahead and finished painting the other two flowers and all the leaves, and then I've left them to dry and then cut them out with the coordinating dies. Now you'll see the grey did some funny things with using it as a watercolour ink. It's ended up separating some of the colours out, so there's little areas of pink in the grey, and also a little bit of sort of greeny tinge, so it actually has worked out quite nice for these pink flowers, so I'm quite happy with it. Now for my front of my card, I wanted to put the flowers in a frame, so I'm going to cut out some glitter card that I have. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to use the pink or the white, so I'm going to cut out both and just see which one I like the best. I'm using the largest out of the Simon Says Stamp stitched rectangle dies, and I'm using that for the inner cut of the frame that I'm going to be making. So I'm just laying it out on the card so I've got an even amount around it that I can then trim to the size frame that I want. So I'll run that through the Big Shot, and I'll do the same for the pink, and then I'll decide what I'm going to use for the card. It was such thick glitter card that it wouldn't cut right through, so I ended up trimming it so that I could turn it around sideways. It didn't fit in the Big Shot otherwise, and I ran it through going the other way and it cut right through, so that was good. I decided I liked the white frame better, so I'll put the pink one aside so that I can use it for another card. I've ended up cutting out another frame with craft foam, which I'll then stick on the back of the frame and then onto my card base. You'll see when I put the frame onto the card base is a bit long, so I'm going to just trim that down so that I've got the same amount of space around the frame on the card base. And then I can start deciding how I'm going to have my flowers and leaves. When I'm happy with how it looks, I'm going to start gluing it down. So I'm going to use glue on the leaves. So I'm putting some on both ends of the leaves, the end that's going to tuck underneath the flowers, and also the part that's going to pop up onto the frame. And the very bottom flower is going to be glued straight onto the card, and then the last two flowers are going to be put on with Scotch foam tape just to raise them up a little bit, and that's the flowers all done. And then lastly, I just need to do a sentiment, which I'm going to do on this pink card. I have this Altenew stamp set, sentiment set called Birthday Greetings, and I've just got to decide what sentiment I'm going to use. So I'm going to stick to quite a simple, this just happy birthday sentiment on the side here. So I'll stamp that with VersaFine Onyx Black ink and emboss with clear embossing powder, and then trim that card out to look a bit like a banner, and then that can go on the card to finish it. As usual, I'll leave you looking at some close-up photos of the card, and at the end there'll be a couple of videos that you might be interested in, either using the same stamp set or painting technique. So thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Press the subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.